Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Maurice Brown Show. And today we have a special guest with us. She is a comedian out of Atlanta, Georgia, faith-based comedian, and she also produces a web series called Wives of the Quarantine. You got to see that. You got to see it. That's a question about hilarious episode, and we're all subject to the quarantine, but the wives in particular are quite humorous. Anyway, you got to check it out. It was very funny, ladies and gentlemen. With no further ado, please welcome to the show faith-based comedian Jennifer O'Brien. Hey, Jennifer.
Hello. Wow. Hey, great intro, man. Can we just do that all day long? Build me up there. That was nice.
Jennifer, I tell you, wives of quarantine, we're all stuck in this thing, and I want to feel like we're around the corner before we're back
Yeah.
out there and everything. And so it just doesn't look like it's happening. But you're making the best of it. Wives of the
Yeah.
quarantine.
Yes. It's interesting you say that. It was like, we're almost through it. We're almost through it. And it's like, no, we're really not, so there is this, it's going longer, although we kind of knew it was going to, but as it's happening, there is this part of me that's like, oh, it's a long suffering, this pandemic is all I can say. So yes, the Real Housewives of the Quarantine, they're just trying to have a good time. I kind of wrapped up season 1. I haven't put anything out in a minute. There we go.
Well, Michelle Van Dusen, she loves the Wives of Quarantine. Michelle is very funny. I had a chance to do a show with Ron DeCory and Michelle last week, which was a lot of fun, and Brian Kohatsu.
Oh, fun show, man. What a great lineup. I'm sure you guys had lots of laughs there.
It was great.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to have to pay her for that little plug there, but you do what you got to do to push it. So, no, but it's a lot of fun. I was thinking, I'm kind of revamping how I put the shows out, but I'll be dropping more stuff soon. I've just been working on some other things, but yes, the Real Housewives of the Quarantine. Why not? I'm sitting here. I might as well throw some wigs on and act crazy because I'm really good at that.
How many episodes have you done so far?
I think I'm close to 16. Maybe 15, maybe 16. I think I threw a music video in there. And then I did some shorts where I would just do one character coming in for the week, which I'm kind of trying to think about how to, do it moving forward, make them maybe a little less, not that they were so long. Like I think 6+ minutes was the longest I ever went on an episode. Okay. But just trying to think of ways to, content is one of those things that I'm sure you do feel this way too. There's so much out there, right? And so much content to view. And so you're always trying to think of, I personally, I will look at the amount of time I have to spend on a video before I even watch the video. I'm like, ooh, how much time do I have here? Yeah. So, so the truth is the lesser the time, the more I'm like, okay, I've got a minute, or I've got 2 minutes. Of course, if you're on YouTube, you're in a more of a like, yeah, I got a second to hang out. So people will, I think, spend longer viewing content on that platform versus if I'm just scrolling through Instagram or Facebook. I'm not really looking to invest a lot of time in viewing videos personally.
Now, here's my favorite part of the Q&A for me. Let's get a snippet, Jennifer, of all of the characters on Wives of the Quarantine.
Okay, you want a snippet of all my characters. Okay, well, there's 6 characters.
Oh, you added another one. I knew you had 5. Now we have awesome. I can't wait to see the 6th one.
I added a character along the way because that's what you do. You just keep making it harder on yourself. No, I'm just kidding. Just more to keep up with. Let's see. So there's Jazz Freebird. She's one of my main characters, and she's kind of this redneck lady. She's pretty hideous. I had one character, Becky. She referred to her as Frankenstein with ovaries. So,
oh boy. Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, Jazz is a little bit much. She has makeup on. I give her big shoulders. I don't know. Visually, she's just this beautiful comedic masterpiece in my mind. Like Like with Jazz, I just want to look at Jazz. I just want to see her. I don't even need to hear her speak. She just makes me laugh by looking at her.
Right,
So she's
right.
probably the main, and I get a lot of people like Jazz because she's into conspiracy. She was kind of made for the pandemic kind of lady, you know. She
Sounds like
survived.
it. Sounds
Yeah,
like it. Yeah.
yeah. She's always carrying tuna fish in her side pocket kind of lady. You know, that kind of lady. So she's a lot of fun. Then we've got Roxy.
Oh, you gotta love
Who
Roxy. You gotta
I
love
adore
Roxy. I tell
Roxy.
you. Yeah.
Roxy's my New Yorker. She'll just tell it like it is. And, you know, it's just crazy. And she's just sitting at home with Jerry. That's her husband. And they're just, you know, they're just watching everything. And what agreed, people's, okay. Yes. Thank you, Cynthia. It's true. And I can admit
Yes.
I'm one of those people. Only so much. I've only got so much going on up here these days. So anyway, Roxy's a lot of fun. She's probably one of the easiest characters for me because she's always in here. And
You
I
seem
just
to have
love
a real
Cynthia.
semblance and fluidity with Roxy, Jennifer. I don't know what it is, but it's very
She's in there.
cohesive and
You know,
hilarious.
I grew up in Florida, and that's
Okay.
where all the people from New York come down. They all retire down in Florida and Boca. So, you know, you just hear it a lot. You see it a lot. And it's just something I grew up always around. I mean, a lot of rednecks in Florida too, don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
But you've got that, you know, so she's just in there every time we'd go to, or, you know, Disney World growing up, there was always tons of people and it just, I love the Roxy.
Hey, Jennifer, and you know what? I didn't realize, you know, that about Florida as far as that goes. This is a real southern. Let's just get it. There, my wife and I took a trip to Key West when we were down there, right? And I'm telling you, I had never seen so much southern flair.
Oh gosh. Well,
Okay. I never would have imagined it down there in Key West.
Oh, it's all over Florida. I mean, seriously, like it's funny because I've been in the Atlanta area for 20 plus years now.
Yeah.
And when I go home to visit family in Jacksonville, I'm like, when you're in it, when you grow up in it, you don't see it. And then when you leave it for a while and come back to it, you're like,
whoa,
my gosh, like, yeah, it's so I just grew up around that. And, you know, but you gotta love those rednecks, man. That give you a lot of material, and you know, I'm one of them deep down. I mean, it's all in there. It all just plays out, and
well, you know, Jennifer, you do have a certain fluidity too when you get into that character. Is that Jasmine?
Yeah, Jazz
Yeah, you have a
Freebird,
certain
right.
semblance
She's
there with
there.
her as well. It's not as smooth as Roxy, but there's a certain kinship, I guess, with Jasmine too.
Oh, it is. Jazz is just, like I said, she's that comedic, like I just want to do my face, like, you know, I just want to just let the eyes just slowly cross and just, you know, and just go there. It does a little something for me. I've realized, I think my characters are like recess for me. You know what I mean? Like for a comedian, it's just like, go play. For me, like I love doing my stand-up. I love writing and all that, but characters,
Angela,
I tell you what, it's playtime. When I get a wig on, watch out. I'm about to play.
Woo-hoo. Hey, Angela, how are you? Represent Wilson, North Carolina. I'm from Wilson,
Woo-hoo.
North Carolina. And
are you?
Yeah. Let me tell you, Jennifer. Listen, let me tell you something. I understand, the Southern flair. I mean, there's plenty of Southern flair in North Carolina. That's what blew me away when I was down there in Florida. I was like, oh my gosh. This is about as North Carolina as you can get down here in Florida.
Oh yeah.
Man.
Yeah, don't let the fancy names like Key West or Boca Raton fool you. It's all redneck. Oh, when I get a wig on, watch out. That's right. That's my sister. She's funny.
Is that right?
She's a funny lady. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Is she also a comedian?
She is. She does an improv. She does a lot of improv with a troupe called Rubber Ducky Improv. And
Okay,
yeah, so she's fun. You got to
cool.
have her on sometime. She's a
I'm
hoot.
gonna have to. I did not know that was your sister. I know I had
Oh
seen her
yeah.
before. You guys had done.
Hmm.
I'd seen some photos with her before, you and her, but I gotta check her out. Yeah, wow. But she's
Yeah,
into improv, huh?
she is. And her and I used to. We did a podcast slash radio show a couple years
Okay.
ago, and we always talk about doing more stuff in the future. So we'll see what we can work up. But we have a natural chemistry as sisters, and we both love
Right.
improv. So we can go to some really fun places. That's recess too. Hanging with my sister, we just naturally go into this
Well, you know what?
beautiful.
That's really cool. I like that. I mean, it doesn't get better than siblings that get along great and have a great comedic chemistry.
Yeah.
As like my brother and I are like that too. The only difference between the two of it, he doesn't like being in front of the camera. He doesn't want any part of the camera, but off
Yeah.
camera, I mean, we have a real kick. And my son, I have two sons that are like that. My middle son is actually a comedian. He's
Oh
21.
wow.
Gabriel's a comedian. And then my older son, who's 23, about to be 24, is actually he's extremely funny. Doesn't want the camera though. Don't put He doesn't want to be anywhere near the camera.
Yeah. Well, that's my husband. I mean, he's one of the funniest guys I've ever met. He constantly
Yeah,
makes me laugh.
yeah.
And he would rather not be in front of the camera. Like I've tried to pull him on to some improv shows and we've done different things, but oh my gosh, he can't stand being in front of a live audience. It's torture. It's torture.
Well, yeah. Michelle says you two need to do more things again. Okay, you got to
All
take her
right.
up on that, Jennifer.
All right, Michelle.
Do you
We'll
know
see
what's
what
interesting?
we can do.
But you know what's interesting about that though? There are people like that, Jennifer, that are
Mhm,
really funny. I mean, at a
mhm.
dinner party, in front of a Starbucks with a couple of friends, the break room at work. I mean, they kill, kill, kill. And when
Yeah.
you mention getting on stage and doing it, it's like, oh no, 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 no,
Mm-mm,
no, no, no.
mm-mm.
It's like the plague, you know?
Yeah, it's true. Well, you know what? I figured that's probably how it works in the marriage. Because we were both competing for that spotlight, well, that wouldn't be good. So no, he loves being behind the scenes, and he's done some stuff comedically, but to be live and in front of people, oh gosh, torture for him, torture.
Jennifer, I had a comedian on yesterday named Waitball. He's from Atlanta, and he
Hmm.
produces a show on well, before the pandemic, obviously, called Soulful Sundays.
Hmm.
But he was telling me that they're still doing live comedy in Atlanta, like they never
Yeah,
stopped. Is that
yeah.
right?
I am not at the moment, but yeah, I have been kind of watching what certain folks are doing,
Yeah,
and there are some places that are still opening, and I haven't been back out there just yet.
yeah.
Not that I'm necessarily opposed to it, but yeah, I just so amen. I mean, listen, people want to get back out there. People can go sit in restaurants. Why not go sit somewhere in a restaurant and laugh at the same time? I mean, and
Yeah.
so I love that it's still going on. I think that it's sometimes a little hard. It's like, oh man, because I do a lot more churches and different venues like that aren't necessarily even opening for their congregation. Nonetheless, bringing in a comedian at this point.
Yeah.
But I know some people are still working and they're still out there, and some places are opening up for different things. And I just have to I've just been doing a lot of writing lately and just getting ready so that I'm ready to go when those opportunities are when we're going again. So,
Well, I think writing is absolutely the way to go to take advantage of it. I mean, obviously, me doing these
oh,
shows.
that's
Li-
my my niece Holly. She's amazing. Anyway, her daughter Willow is adorable. We got to see them last week. So
oh,
anyway,
awesome. Awesome.
precious family.
I
Anyway,
love it. I love it.
hello,
You know,
hello.
getting out though is hard for me because a lot of people in DC where I'm based are doing they're starting to do outdoor shows.
Yeah.
And for a comic, that's I mean, I finally did the virtual. I've been doing those, but the
Uh-huh.
outdoor shows are kind of complicated because the laughs diminish out there. People are spaced out. They're the laughs go up in the air and they disappear, and so I don't
Right.
know. It's more of a challenge, but I don't know how much longer I can take not performing if it's available. I'm starting to see that more venues are starting to open up now
Right.
slowly. So I don't know, but I like what you're doing. Go ahead and write. I think this is the time to really just create a bigger library of jokes,
Sure.
and
Absolutely.
don't push it, don't rush it. We've been on stage enough to know what to do when we get up there. I mean, we've been doing
Mhm.
it long enough, Jennifer, where I would
Right.
think it's like riding a bike. You don't forget. I mean, we've done it too many times. So
Right.
why not just increase your library and get more a longer sets? I mean, I don't. What's your longest set that you're able to go out and do?
If I book a church by myself, I'll usually do an hour,
Oh wow.
which I
Okay.
love that because I feel like when it's, and I don't mind doing 5 or 10 or 20, wherever I can get, get
Yeah.
time, but I can rest in my sets when I don't have to feel like I got 15 or 20 and I got to get off. Um, I definitely like doing longer sets because then I can take my time and feel like I can just get, where I want to get. So I am working on a special right now
Is
based
that
on,
right? Really?
yes, based on just material I've been kind of working on these last, 5 years or so.
Okay.
And I'm just putting it all together, adding a few things and tightening it. But kind of based on the title of it's We Can't Afford It Right Now. And that was what my mom liked to say all the time growing up. Like we would go into J.C. Penney's and the poor sales associate would come up, and before they could even say, "Oh, can we help you with anything?" my mom would be like, "Whoa, I'm sorry, we're just looking. We can't afford it right now." And she said it, and I'm not kidding, like all the time. You could ask my sister constantly, like to complete strangers. And it was,
Yeah.
she's a single mom. And so I grew up with that. And then I became a single mom. And then I was rescued. I got married to my husband, who is an artist.
Uh,
So the term starving artist, anyway, so God just was preparing me for a
yeah.
life of, not having much. So a lot of the special I'm working on is just our stories. I've been married to my husband almost 20 years next February.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
I've got all
Congratulations.
these stories, all these really funny things that have happened to us, and then childhood experiences, being a single mom. So I'm just putting all of it together and trying to get it down to about an hour. I got so much, but I got to tighten what I do have. And yeah, so I'm excited about that. So I feel like I'm just using
Awesome.
this time to be prepared for when, and then writing a lot of new stuff that's happening. Obviously we got so much stuff with the virus,
Yes.
um,
Yes.
and just how that's played out. Fine dining. We went to, I think it's called Sea Pines. It's Hilton Head. I went there this summer. I've
Uh-huh.
never been. It's I think PGA does their tour there. Like it's a really nice community. And so we got to go with a few friends, and
Uh-huh.
so I'm working on some stuff there because it was kind of like one of those places where you're like, is baby in the corner around here? Like it was really nice, kind of ritzy.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my gosh, I've never been in a place like this. Like, so I talk about my fine, and then we did some fine dining there, but it was during the
Yeah.
pandemic. So they brought us, like, I was cutting my filet mignon with like plastic cutlery, and I'm like, oh, and
Yeah.
drinking Chardonnay out of a clear Solo cup. It was a
Oh,
different fine
oh,
dining.
it's such high class stuff. I'm telling you, it's beautiful.
It is.
Well, look, Jennifer, are so the special that you're working on now?
Yeah.
Is this going to be a dry bar special? We're talking here.
Oh, sure. Let's just speak live. Yes, it's going to be a dry bar special. I'm just waiting for dry bar to call me. No, I'm not quite sure exactly where, but I am going to film this sucker, and
I like it. I love it.
I'm
That's
gonna
what you got to
make
do.
some money off of it.
Well, Jennifer, you
We'll
got to
see.
take the bull by the horns and just go ahead and do it. I know comedians that have specials on Spotify, Apple Music. Donnie Stopa was on. I don't know if have you ever met Donnie
Oh, he's
Stopa?
funny. Oh, yeah, yeah. Donnie's funny. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Donnie's
He's a
hilarious.
funny
So
guy.
he's got a special that he did that is on, my gosh, I want to say it's on at Prime Video. It's on Amazon Prime.
Oh, I gotta check it
But
out.
yeah,
Okay,
and
I didn't know he was on
it's
there.
called Millennial. It's called Millennials. Am I right? but
That's great.
so he went out and like I said, he took the bull by the horns and he made it happen. And sometimes you got to do that, Jennifer. Sometimes you just got to
Listen.
do it. If you have the material, you got to go out and get people. That you try to get as many friends and get the word out. Hey, pack a 200 or 300 seat venue.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh! And you got to get the cameras and all. It's a darn
sure.
project, but sometimes you got to just go ahead and make it happen yourself.
Well, it's like at my age, it's what if I've been at this long enough. I'm
Yeah.
45. I started doing comedy in my early 20s, and I
Okay.
played around then. Like I was a single mom. I enjoyed being funny and having my moments, but I didn't really take it seriously,
Right.
And
Got
then,
it. Yeah.
do my mom thing, get married, have another child. So that was
Yeah.
my main focus for all those years. So I never considered that I was like constantly full time that whole time. I just do
Yeah.
gigs here and there and have a great time and go home and do the mom thing. So it's
Right.
not
Sure.
until, these last 5 years that I'm like, okay, my kids are older. Got one still at home. She's going to be graduating next year. So I'm now taking it seriously,
Yeah.
but I'm not, I'm not sitting around waiting like, oh, I just hope this will, you just got to make the opportunities until they come, and
Exactly.
we were talking earlier about your show, just consistency, sticking with it and keep working, until things do open up, until opportunities are available.
Well,
So,
the good. I totally agree with you. You have to be consistent. I mean, and to your point about consistency, I mean, this show now will be airing on the Roku TV every week through the Creative Motion Network. So, I mean, visibility, consistency, people see what you're doing, and it pays off. You just got to keep bringing it. And
yeah.
but the specials. Mike Birbiglia. I don't know if you're familiar with Mike Birbiglia or not, but he did the same thing about 5 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, 5 or 6 years ago. Local comedian here in DC, and he decided to arrange his own special. He got the cameras going and so forth. He filled up a venue of about 200 to 300 people, and Netflix picked it up.
That's awesome.
Netflix picked it up, and then he ended up becoming a movie producer. I think I don't know if you've ever watched Key and Peele, but the taller one,
Oh my
Michael
gosh,
Keegan
love
Key,
those guys. Yeah.
starred in the film that he produced and directed. I think
Wow.
it came out about 3 or 4 years ago. Long story short, but it began because he'd say, "Look, I'm just going to make this happen."
Right. I just,
So,
when you're maybe in your 20s, you're like, oh, whatever happens. 30s, you're starting to get 45. I'm like, oh, okay, let's already, come on. I'm going to just make it happen. So, and, and sometimes it's just like, I'm gone are the days when I just would wish it. It was like, no, you got to do the work. You got to put the
yeah, you
time
do.
in. And my gosh, I'm sitting at home during a pandemic. It's like, well, what's my excuse now? If I'm not writing, if I'm not like spinning, and I spend a good bit of time of my day just getting things tightened and ready. And I
Yeah,
know a lot of stuff does work, but
yeah,
a lot of stuff can get better. And I just want to make what I know works. Let's make it even better. So,
sure, sure.
and I got enough, good comedy folks in my life that can kind of help me tweak and tighten and all that good stuff. But yes, so that's where I'm at these days.
Well, you know what, Jennifer, think about it like this. Sometimes God prolongs that process until, you're just ready for it. Because I think when you're young and
Mhm.
successful, the chances of falling are greater because you're not
Oh my
mature. You're not
God.
mature enough to handle it,
Right? Like,
you
but
know.
I'm just like, Lord, can I just maybe not have all the grays when I finally make it to the big time? Little things like that. You're just like, all right, 45, let's go here. But it's true. I had things and it's kind of funny because I had some big opportunities early on, and I was really afraid of them. Like
Is that
I
right?
don't,
Give me some
and
examples.
well, I was gonna go to be part of the, what is it? What's the Montreal Laugh Fest thing, that they
I guess
do?
it's the Montreal Comedy Festival.
So, this guy's just like, get up to New York and I'll get you on the stage. We'll get you
That-
there. And I mean, I'm a single mom at this point, and I was just like, oh no, I'm good. Like, and I had a few agents approach me, and I'm like, oh, I
Oh,
don't think
that's a big
so.
deal, Jennifer. That's a big deal. Getting
Yeah.
invited to the Montreal Comedy Festival is pretty huge.
Well, I had to get to New York first, and then once
Okay.
I got to New York, then they were like, okay, we'll get you. But I was a young single mom, and
Okay.
I remember praying like, God, don't let him let me just get married first. I don't know why I had so much fear. And then I got to be on
Okay.
Nick at Night's Funniest Search for Funniest Mom in America.
Okay.
Same with that. Like, I
Okay.
had two daughters, but
Okay.
I got flown to New York. I got to be on that.
Okay.
But I remember thinking, and if they had chosen me, I would have gone on to stay they would have flown me back up to New York. I would have got to stay in this house with 10 other ladies and compete for the title of funniest mom. And I remember the only reason I went was like, okay, I gotta go because God's given me this opportunity. But I remember saying, God, please don't let him choose me. Please don't let him, like, I didn't want to go.
Okay.
Like, so, I mean, part of that, like, come on, reality TV, like, I am obsessed. I could get obsessed with it, but I didn't like when they had all the cameras on me when we filmed like the intro, whatever, and being mic'd, and I had to go to the bathroom, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to turn the mic off. I don't want the producer people hearing me, do my business because, I got a reputation to upkeep. And so just things like that, it felt invasive and weird. And but now I'm like, oh my gosh, if I could just get those opportunities again, I'm ready for them. Sometimes I felt like God was saying, keep doing it.
Yeah.
Even though he knew I wasn't ready. Like, so I never quite hung it up. I mean, there was a few times I'm like, oh, I'm not going to do stand up anymore. And then I would go do it again. I don't know what was wrong with me. Anyway, I'm just being weird, but, I just wasn't ready, I guess. I had a lot of fear and I wasn't ready. So now it's like, now I just feel like, okay, life's beaten me up enough. And so I don't know, maybe I'm in a different place. I think I've been able to be there for my family. And I was raised by a single mom. Like I said, I was a single mom. My true calling, like, I felt like I want to be here for my kids. I want to be here when they're home. I want to be here to be there for them. And I have a joke 100%. I'm working on about, like, mommy, can we have a bike? No, I'm sorry, we can't afford it, but mommy's here. Mommy's right here. Sorry, we don't have money for anything, but I'm here. I'm right here.
Oh yeah, that's what they want to hear, Jennifer. That does the trick right there. If mommy's here, it's all good. Okay.
They're like, no, we really want the Schwinn. Could you just go to work somewhere? No. So anyway, I'm working that out. Don't know if we've quite made the right decisions all along, but time will tell.
Well, Jennifer, I think you're well on your way. You're a well-known comedian, and amongst the faith-based community, a lot of people know who you are, and you like, again, you're highly regarded and respected as a comic, and your time's coming. It's all in God's timing. It's all in God's timing. We want it. We think we know what we want, but God knows what we need. And hey, listen, you're doing exactly what He wants you to do, and that time's coming very soon. Let me just ask you this. There you go. So Jennifer, tell us a little bit about how you deal with your nerves and your butterflies before you go. We talked about people that are funny that don't even want to touch this, but we all get nervous. We all get the butterflies before we go on stage. How do you deal with that before you go up?
You just use it. You just use it. And the more that your heart is pumping and you're just, that means you're just going to be funny, I guess. Hold on. So you weren't ready for Tinkle Town.
What she means is tinkle. Tinkletown.
That's what I figured. I figured it was Tinkletown. What's Tinkletown? Explain Tinkletown to me. I want to know because I want to go there.
Oh boy, that's funny.
Max Stamper's autograph. I'm going to work on it. I'm going to work on getting you Max Stamper's autograph. How much are you willing to pay? Prophet I, Maurice. Hey, I'll take it. Prophetic.
Hey, it's coming, Jennifer. I'm telling you, what we're doing right now. I mean, God's word does not come back to him void.
Oh, praise the Lord. And you know, it's and sometimes I think it's a sifting season where what is it about me? Because you know, if I'm doing this for my glory, let me just tap out right now. And I don't think I'll ever not have that battle in my, you know, my going after. Is this selfish ambition? Is this about me, or am I doing this to glorify the Lord?
Right.
And I've kind of come to the realization I will battle that until it's over. Like, I'm never going to get to some place where it's like, oh, it's all about the Lord. No, I have to wrestle with Jesus to be like, you know what? I am here for you. And let me just remember.
Well, see, Jennifer, that's the key. See, you just hit on the key right there, because as performers, this is the battle that we do have, because we're fighting against flesh.
Absolutely.
And it's not about us. It's about the Lord. And you have to keep reminding yourself, you know, when you have the successes and people are patting you on the back and, you know, you're doing your job, the thing that you love to do well, then sometimes you really got to stop and go, wait a minute, hold on. Let me understand that I'm doing this for the Lord first and foremost, above and beyond. So that's really the battle, because you can end up in, you know, arrogance and the big-headedness before you know it.
Oh,
and
sure.
So you got to fight against it.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think we'll ever stop, you know, having that battle if we're truly honest.
You're 100% correct. Yes.
Those gifts now is your time. Amen. That's so sweet. Thank you. Such encouragement today. Well, let's just
Michelle.
not stop at an hour, Maurice. Let's just keep this going as long as we can.
Let's just keep going right on down the road. But I mean, really great words of encouragement, because it's all true. You know, we just have, it's all about, and see, God, I love what you just said too about what the fight is about. Well, God knows that we're in that fight. And if we get to that place before it's time, well, we'll lose that battle. God already knows we're going to lose that battle if he puts us there when we think we ought to be there. If he put us there when we think we ought to be there, we'll fail.
Absolutely. And I have to that's a constant heart check. At least every couple weeks, I got to get to those moments with God. Like, you know what, this is about you. And I don't want to be where you're not. So if you're not at this goal, so be it. I want to be exactly where you have me. And nothing's worth forfeiting this relationship or compromising this union that I have with Christ, because that I know is, I have it all. Like, I am successful today. It's not going to be an amount of money. It's not going to be a certain person telling me I'm funny. It's not going to be this opportunity or that. Like, to really remind myself, I'm successful right now because of who I am in Christ. And when and I'm not kidding, like, it's at least every couple of weeks, I got to really have that conversation with God and being reminded, because sometimes I'm looking at my numbers. Oh, no, nobody said that was funny. Like, I'm watching, oh, that didn't. And so I'm trying to, and then I have to be like, wait a second, like, why is that dictating? Like, if God's calling me to do something, do what he's calling me to do, and stop looking at the results, or if it didn't go as far, or if it didn't land the way I wanted it to land. Like, that's just get off, detach from that in a sense. But it's a wrestling match, despite not the day of small gigs. CBT, Comedian's Bible translation. Despise not the day of small gigs. I like that. That's awesome. It's what, do not despise small beginnings. I have a good comedy friend, Kay Dodd. She's said that to me many times. You know, not despising the seasons we're in, even if you feel like kind of starting over. When I started doing more Christian comedy about 5-6 years ago, it was like I was starting over. You know, it was like everything that I did prior to that was just way there, and now it's learning how to do this comedy in churches and learning what that looks like,
Right.
and learning the ministry aspect to what I'm doing. So it was hard. It is, when you're starting over, in a sense, you just have to keep eating that humble pie. And sometimes you're like, I'm sorry, I have an aversion to humble pie. No, keep eating. Okay. And you just keep eating.
Yes, 100%,
Yeah.
100%. There's no question. What I really think would be great. I was talking to Michelle Van Duzen, Brian Kohatsu, and Rhonda Corey last week about, God's been really working with me on taking this comedy to another level, because you're talking about, okay, we're doing this virtual platform, this whole other new thing that we would not be doing had the pandemic not hit, right?
Yeah.
And so Conan O'Brien had, I don't know if he still does this show where he late night comedy show where he has stand up, comedians come on.
Mm-hmm.
But that should be done in the faith-based world. God's just giving me some ideas, and I think it would be awesome to do a late night version from a a faith-based platform.
Absolutely.
And I mean, it would be hugely funny. But the thing is, and I'd love to hear your response to this, I think the faith-based community, Jennifer, is still, even though you see a lot of comedy in churches now, way more than you did in 1970.
Right.
You're seeing a lot more, but I still think that the faith-based world is still edging up to the acceptance of comedy. What do you think?
I think it depends on where you're doing it. Like when you step foot in a church to do a comedy show, there are some things you have to really make sure you've cleaned up and you, because it is the place where the pastor's going to stand the next morning or the next day. So you gotta show the reverence when you're in the house of the Lord.
You have to
when you do your comedy.
Yeah.
If you're still a Christian and you're on a theater stage or you're in a club, I mean, we still have to answer to God whether we keep it clean or not. But I think there's a lot more wiggle room. Even when you have faith, people in the audience that have faith.
Yeah.
I still think they want to go. I know plenty of people that are Christians that go to comedy clubs and go to venues to see good stand-up. I think you just have to tread a little more cautiously when it's done in a place of worship, in my experience. But if I'm on a stage at a theater or somewhere else, I will most likely do very similar sets. But I do think even if there's the same Christian that was sitting in the church is now sitting in the theater, I think they can relax a little more, because I do think there is something when you do comedy in a church that you really have to be really mindful of. Just so much that goes on, and you want to really make sure that you're respecting your audience and respecting that there are people there that they really want to have a good time, but they're a little scared because this is their church, and is it okay? And I think it's respecting that's just, I don't think that's ever going to go away, because it is a house of worship. It is a place where people are giving their lives to Christ, and we want to respect that is. And I feel privileged when I get to go do comedy in churches, because I really do know that this is the house of the Lord. This is a place where people come to worship. But when I do that same set and I'm in a different venue, I will still could do the exact same set. I do feel that there's maybe the little that tension isn't quite there. Even if you have the same audience and you put them in that location, that tension's not quite as there that maybe you would feel in a church. But I don't know if that answers the question. What did I do?
No, I think you did. I think you, Jennifer, I think you did. I think you 100% answered the question, and I think that and there's a lot of comedy in the churches. My idea is not of having the show in a church. It's just it can be a club setting, but it's all Christian comedy, faith-based humor. You know what I mean? I would not want to do a show like that in a sanctuary, but I know that a lot of sanctuaries are starting to open themselves up to comedy, but it's kind of a dicey, slippery slope there, because you don't want to be irreverent even though you
Right.
don't intend to be, it's kind of, hedging towards that side of the road of being irreverent. So you got to be careful. It's a lot with that. I mean, there are guys that like to make jokes about the church
Hmm.
and Jesus and things like that. And there are people that can do that very well. But it's like, okay, well, you got to be really careful about it if that's what you're going to do. I tend to stay away from those kind of jokes just because
Yeah.
I just don't see anything myself personally humorous about it, so I don't do it. But there are
Yeah.
some that do it and they do it very well. But just to, piggyback on your point of, okay, the sanctuary is a place where you have to really be careful about, joke telling and how, you're going to approach it. So
Right. No,
I
I think
totally,
I love your idea, and I think that nobody's doing that, as far as I know. Why not create some sort of platform for faith-based comedians to come and do their sets? Why not?
sure,
Yeah.
100%. Let's see. So Michelle says, for your faith-based show, I think the comics that you have on there are still getting cleansed. God is
Hmm.
still working in their lives. Their lives need to be clean on stage as much as off stage. So soon it will be happening soon. I love it. Thank you,
Okay.
Michelle.
All righty.
I
That's
love
good
it.
stuff. Yeah.
And I don't know. God's just really nudging me with something. There's so many good, high quality, faith based comedians out there. I mean, a ton actually,
Yeah.
and
I
that a
agree.
lot of people don't know about. And they need exposure. They need visibility. They need a platform to be seen. And quite frankly and honestly, I think faith based comedians are just as funny, if not funnier, than secular comics.
Right.
They're just not really seen. I think that what I try to tell comics that are secular, the younger generation, is that listen, you can take a word out of that joke, which is really funny,
Hmm.
and it will be just as funny. I'm talking about the profane words. You can
Right.
take those out and put in another word that's far safer,
Hmm.
and the joke's just as funny, if not funnier.
Yeah.
And I also tell them, I said, listen, you're not going to be in Jimmy Kimmel, Conan O'Brien, or Jimmy Fallon, or Seth Meyers with that set.
Sure.
I mean, that's
Right.
you
You
got
got
to
to
have
clean
the
it up.
ability to be
Hmm.
clean. I mean, all of those platforms, they
Hmm.
have secular comedians that use profanity that can be clean just like that at a drop of a hat. And
Right.
so I try to tell the younger guys, look, you need to work on being clean, even though you think it's, a nerd move. Guys, if you really want to make it, you gotta learn how to do a clean set. Look at Jerry Seinfeld.
Sure.
He's by far the most
Hmm.
lucrative comedian in the world. There's no one even close to him.
Right.
And and so it kind of backs up God's word there. He even
Hmm.
said, when I'm not on stage, I'm not clean.
Hmm.
He just said the stage is no place for profanity and lewdness, and
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, if you really study the comics that can go far, they all, even if, like Jerry said, he's not clean on stage, they've learned how to clean it up for the stage. And I think there's wisdom in that. I love your heart towards God. Thank you. Can you do a Joan Rivers impression?
Oh
Joan
yeah.
Rivers. Oh, Joan. Gosh, Joan, it's been a while since I've seen Joan Rivers. Oh, I don't know, Joan. For me, like I feel like impressions, like if it's my neighbors two doors down, I got it. But like sometimes doing celebrities are so hard. But Joan was a character. I'll work on Joan Rivers
Oh,
and
oh my gosh, Joe
make
Rivers
a
was
little.
an absolute
Oh,
character. She
she
was
was.
really good.
Yeah.
And Joan, I think she had her own. I think she did Blue Material, but
Yeah. But she
once
could clean it
again,
like any. She could clean it up though. They all could
what
clean it up.
again, she can do
Any
it.
comedian that's made it knows how to clean it up. And I think
Yes.
that sometimes I'd be honest, as I write, yeah, sure. There's times I'm like, oh man, if I could say that, it would, it's so funny. And then it's like, but no, I can't. Like I couldn't with my clear conscience know that I'm not going to say that word. It would my kids, grandkids one day. You know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
want to make sure what I leave behind isn't a bunch of stuff that I feel really bad about. I got enough of that already.
Yeah.
So I got a lifetime of that.
Right.
So I think it just requires the comedian to work harder at making it hit, and you spend more time in your punchlines to make them cleaner and funnier. You can totally. Oh, thank you, Dora. Thank you, Dora. Thank you. Oh, okay. I tried. I just, we'll see.
Well, see, and you
But
know what? That's that 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 New York accent comes out. Joan is all New York too. You
she
know.
was. Oh, and the raspy. I loved her. She had a great voice. What a voice. What a voice.
Jennifer, how how do you remember all of your? Do you have a process or a method of remembering your material?
For like stand-up shows.
Yeah, for stand up.
Oh, I rehearse a heck of a lot. Not only when I do them on stage over and over again, but I will literally repeat the same jokes over and over and over and over again until
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
like it's in here. It's just, and I mean, a lot of time is spent just doing it over and over in my head and out loud. And I walk around my house and I'm driving my car and I'm constantly telling the joke like I'm doing it on stage, to where when
Okay.
I finally get on stage, I've said it so many times and done it on stage, hopefully open mics in different places, that it's solid. So
Hey, Jeffrey,
yeah.
thanks for the shout out. Mask is the new 4-letter word. Thanks for going the extra mile to do clean and creative work. Well, thank you, Jeffrey. It's
Thank
a
you, Mr.
pleasure.
Fitzgerald. Thank you. Thank you.
It's
Yes.
a pleasure to do it. I
Any
mean,
4-letter word.
honestly, I think clean comedy requires an extra skill. I mean, I think that when you're writing clean, it requires way more effort. It requires way more thought.
Mhm.
As a result, I think it makes you way more skilled.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
world seems to think that, just giving the immediate, the profane, the lewdness, because it gets the immediate effect. And so a lot of good comics settle for the easy laugh rather
Yeah.
than really trying to be thorough in your writing. I don't know what it's like in Atlanta, and I don't know if you've ever performed in DC, but in Washington DC, you just can't deliver up anything because they will not laugh if it is not a well written joke. It's just very typical in Washington. It's a political town. People seem to feel like it's some type of logarithm to
Mhm.
figure out the joke. They're listening and they're like, oh,
Mhm.
that's very fun. I mean, it's got to make
Yeah.
sense. You're
Yeah.
forced to write well in DC. So, I mean, and again, that's just what clean comedy is all about. I mean, you just have to put in the effort to write really well. But
Yeah.
if I went to, and this is not to demean other cities, but if I go to Philadelphia or Chicago or New York or Houston or Los Angeles, though it's more of a hey, let's have fun. Oh man, everybody's it's kind of a rebel rouser kind of environment. So
Yeah.
it doesn't require as much. But in DC, it's a
You
different
got to
deal.
work for those laughs. You're working hard for the money
Oh yeah, you
or
got
for the
to
laugh. Yeah.
you got to work hard for the money. Michelle
Mhm.
Van Dusen said, check out the 2008 video of the Apostles of Comedy or the 2004 Bananas Family Comedy TV series. It's time to bring something like that back, and your first guest should be Jennifer O'Brien. I love
Oh,
it.
there, she volunteered me. I love
I
it.
love it,
Thank you.
Michelle. I absolutely love it. Matter of fact, I had Jeff Allen on the show. I
Oh,
had
yes.
Jeff Allen on the show about 2 weeks ago, and I think he was on the 2004 Bananas of Comedy. And I think he was also a part of the Apostles of Comedy as well.
Yeah, those things are old. Like, I think every comedian had a mullet in those. Let's do a new one. Like, let's get them going again. You know?
I'm on the very precipice, Jennifer, of doing something. This pandemic is forcing me out of the box. And the
Yeah,
ideas are really awesome what God is giving me. And I'm meeting new faith-based comedians every week. And I just
that's
met
right.
Michelle, recently, Robert G. Lee, Claiborne Cox. There's Maria Herman out of San Diego and Char Prunier. It's just so many good, clean comics. I have not had the pleasure yet of meeting Michael Jr. Have you met Michael Jr.?
I've met Michael Jr. at the CCA, the Christian Comedy Association. That's
Okay.
where all the
Okay.
Christian comedians get together once a year and we have a conference. And yeah, which is great. We didn't obviously have it this year, but
Yeah.
that's where I've met a lot of the Christian comedians that I know now.
Now
It's
Michael Jr. is Jeff Allen's on both of the, I thought he was, Michelle. And he was on the show. Very funny guy. But I noticed Michael Jr., you talk about performing in sanctuaries.
Mhm.
That guy is he's filling sanctuaries anywhere from 10 to 15,000, I think. I mean,
Yeah,
but of
yeah.
course it's at those big mega churches like Saddleback. What's the guy's name? He did a book not too long ago.
Osteen,
What's that? Rick
Osteen's
Warren.
church.
It's Rick
Uh,
Warren. Rick Warren's
that is,
church,
okay.
Saddleback Church. And I think he did Joel Osteen's church in Houston. That darn thing's got about, I don't know, my gosh, what, 20,000 people in there? I don't know.
Yeah,
But some of these sanctuaries are huge. John
yeah.
Christ was actually doing that before he had his issues, but he's on the way back, thank God. John Christ is on his way back. He was filling venues like that. So the church, there is a place
Mhm.
within the church for big shows like that. But I think the idea God is get Michael Jr. has a comedy master class now as well. He does. I have seen that, but my idea though, Jennifer, is to just kind of not be in the church, just at a regular comedy club setting
Mhm.
scene. We're just
Yeah,
doing clean comedy, faith based, Christ uplifting. Because I like
yeah.
what you said earlier. There are some jokes that are really clean and funny, but not necessarily for the sanctuary.
Sure.
Have you ever met
Absolutely.
Bone Hampton?
Oh yeah, I love Bone.
Bone
Great.
Hampton has this idea of doing a different kind of clean comedy. He's like, what does he say? He says his comedy isn't for some. He has some types of comedy that's not for kids.
Sure.
It's for adults, for
Right.
grown Christ.
Right.
Forget this one, Jennifer. Grown Christian adults.
You left a word out. No, I'm just kidding.
What'd you say?
But you left a word out. I'm just kidding. It's clean.
Oh, but
Whoa.
but Jennifer, there are things that, and this is Bone's perspective, which I do agree with, is that there are things that we go through as Christians that are just typical battles. And there's a
Sure.
way to describe those spiritual challenges and battles without being lewd and crude and profane,
Right.
but we can be real clear about the battle and laugh about it. And
Yeah.
and we should be able to do that. Whereas you definitely don't. It's not for kids, though.
Absolutely.
It's not for children. And quite frankly, and honestly, it may or may not be per se for the sanctuary. Although I'm not 100% sure that, because I think we need to be more real sometimes in church. I think we're so um,
Churchy.
yeah, thank you. I think we'll just go with that. I like that word. We're just so churchy. It's like, can we just get to the crux of the matter so we can break through this stronghold? And I think that kind of holds us back. Michael
Yeah.
Jr. comedy, his story is amazing and how God is using him now in his redemption and action. He's very impactful. Michael Jr. has a
Oh yeah.
very interesting story, and he reaches out to the homeless. He goes to prisons. He goes to juvenile detention centers, which is something I want to do as well. And that gets back to humility, Jennifer. It's like, wow, am I focused on being great, or am I focused on doing God's work through the gift He's given? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
He's a
and
great example of that for sure.
it's a great example of it. So I'm contemplating on doing that as well. But Jennifer, wow, this has been a great hour that we've had just kicking it on
Just
the
kicking it.
comedy scene here. We've just been pretty much kicking it. Always enjoy having you on the show. And so when can we expect a new episode of The Wives of the Quarantine?
Well, I'm working. It's in the works. It's in the works. And, I've got a video I'm probably going to drop in the next day or so, just one of my off the cuff videos. But I've been kind of letting the housewives kind of just simmer a little bit because it was just a lot going on with the pandemic and just a lot. So I've just kind of let them lie low a little bit.
Okay.
And I've just kind of revamped. I'm going to work smarter, not harder, and probably just how I'm going to edit this down. But I'm going to get some stuff going. I think enough stuff has happened. I've given enough time. I've accrued some material for them. So let's say hopefully next week.
Okay.
Definitely get something coming out soon. I appreciate you supporting it and having and liking the Real Housewives of the Quarantine.
Oh, it's hilarious. I love it. I absolutely love it. How do you manage the editing of the show and everything? Do you do it yourself or do you have a producer?
Well, it was funny because typically my husband's my videographer / editor, although I have learned how to do a lot of that. And when the pandemic hit, he was in Las Vegas with his company working. And so it was almost a 6-month whole thing. I mean, he got back mid-July,
Okay.
but it was just me. And I just was like, well, I can't just sit here. So I learned, I set my camera up on a tripod. I learned I had done enough in Final Cut that I knew how to edit at that point. So at this point, I've been the only one doing everything from the beginning to end.
Wow.
Now that my husband's back in the picture, he can tighten things. Like I can get videos to here, and when he gets a hold of them, he just makes them. He just has the magic touch. So hopefully, I can pull him in to help me with a little bit of it now. But if not, he does his own. He's got enough going on. What am I doing? I'm sitting at home. I can just, it's no excuse. I can do what I need to do. But it has been me up to this point, but I'm hoping now that he's back, he can kind of tweak some things, make it even better than before, because he's just good like that. That's his gift. He's really good at editing videos. He's just amazing. So
see, and it's interesting when you mention time, and it's like, okay, well, what can I do to take the bull by the horns again and figure out, okay, how do I do? Because what you want to ultimately be able to do is hire a pro to do all these things. That we're talking about. I need a person to do this, yada yada. And me being a computer dummy, I'm really in trouble. I have to depend on my kids when they're available.
Yeah.
Or with hey Jennifer, or when they feel like it. When they're in the mood.
Yeah.
So
that's always
and then
you have to pay them and bribe them and stuff.
Oh my gosh, all kind of things and tricks. So I started learning how to do a lot of stuff myself, and just and then just make it happen. And then you just, like I said, hopefully you can get to a point where you can hire, someone to start doing little things for you, so you can just focus on your craft.
It's always about my team. I'm like, if I could just have this intact or that intact, and then all I got to do is just be funny. But God's like, no, you're gonna need, sometimes I kind of like, oh man, I'm my social media marketer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm my own agent. I'm my own manager. Like I'm doing, and until I think is the right time, I just have to keep learning the next thing. It's kind of a blessing and a curse being in the time that we're in, because we can learn these things. We can access these things. Is the blessing. The curse is then we have to do it. We don't have somebody doing it for us. And so we're in such a time of self-publishing and public, all this. It's a blessing and a curse sometimes. Sometimes I just wish, somebody was doing all of it for me and I would just get to show up and be funny all day. Wouldn't that be nice? But
Michelle says you should have have you ever considered having your sister do a character on the show?
Well, listen, she was so weird. I'm going to be honest. She got weird at the beginning of the pandemic. No one could go near her. She was one of these. I love her to pieces. But and then she thinks she had the virus. I thought I had it back. And we all think we've had the virus at some point. But
Yeah.
I didn't pull anybody on the show at the beginning because nobody could get around anybody. So
Yeah.
that's another thing I thought about. What if as I redo it now that restrictions are loosened, I might just try to figure out ways to make it fun. I've really considered pulling more people into the show with me, but we'll see, Michelle. We'll see.
Yeah.
More work for me. No, I'm kidding.
What's the platform that fans can see the Wives of the Quarantine on?
So if you go to my website, which is jenniferobriencomedy.com,
Okay.
I have links to all my social media, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, which I try to post everything on all of them. Of course, you can find me at Jennifer O'Brien. Maybe I'm just Jennifer O'Brien on Facebook, or maybe I'm Jennifer O'Brien Comedy. I don't even know. So I've created it as a series on my, you could do a Zoom doctor. Oh, see, Michelle, I need to do something with Michelle. She's so creative and funny. That's great.
Yes,
I love
very
that.
funny.
I love that, Michelle. Maybe you need to be the doctor. Oh, Joan Peterson. Hello, Aunt Sylvia. She loves Joan Peterson. Yeah. Jones. Oh gosh, who doesn't love Joan? I think I needed to just take some time and just let things build. And then I really did feel God's calling me to just get your writing. Don't, be so caught up in these videos, which are great. Sometimes though, I'm always thinking what's going to produce income and what's going to produce, what I really want to do, which is I love doing live events. I love being around people. So can't neglect, the first thing I feel called to do, which is doing my stand-up and my writing and all that. So, but yes, I will be Joan is coming. Joan will be back soon. And all the ladies will be back at it soon enough.
Well, you know what I'm going to stay in contact with you, Jennifer, and all of my faith-based comedy friends. I think what I'm going to start doing is a Venmo show where I would host and come out, do like a monologue and have my guest come up and do like 10 minutes, of stand up. And then maybe we could sit down and have a convo or something like that, because I've been doing a show with some older comics. They're secular comics. Of course, I'm still doing clean, but they invited me to be a part of I made the cut. It's a bunch of older comics. So 55, you make the cut. I made the cut, Jennifer. But I'm on the OG show. You got to love it. But what what I learned was that, a lot of people actually, it's a tip jar. Mm-hmm. And we've been getting, decent little change here and there. I didn't expect much more than $5 or $10 for each comic, and it ended up being 35. And the last show I did, each comic got 50. And I'm like, whoa, man, this is kind of interesting. So I'm thinking, man, if I could create an avenue for Venmo with a faith-based show, I think that would be really cool. Anyway, guys, just give me some ideas. Keep me in prayer, Jennifer. I'm definitely.
I love your heart because you're a comedian and you understand, what it's like to want to be out there. And I love that you've taken this show and you're staying in front of people and you're connecting with people. And I think God's going to really bless it. And I will keep you in prayer, because I know when God starts putting those things on our heart, it's like, sometimes that's just what guides me. It's like when I just feel like I keep having those reoccurring thoughts over and over again. And then somebody says this, and you just have to trust that that's how God sometimes is leading us. And I think I'm excited to be here again with you. And I will keep you in prayer for all those things that you mentioned. Jazz could series Raising Chickens and Toilet Paper Alternatives. Yes. Yes. Do it. I love it. I love that.
Well, that's some food for thought right there. That should get the wheels turning right there. That's not a bad idea. That's funny. I can imagine that 100%.
Toilet paper. Well, that second wave is coming, so we're going to need a toilet paper alternative. So why not? Let's figure this out.
Well, that's what they say, and I'm just, oh my gosh, this stuff is crazy. But again, God's in control. It is like we're doing things that we never would have been doing had it not been for the pandemic. So there are extra special blessings coming for
Yes,
God's people.
I
So
agree with
we
that.
just got to trust the Lord. And I don't want to say it like we're good, you guys are done. Not like that, but when you're on God's side, he's got something special for you. It's not the same fate that that the world has to suffer. It's not the same thing.
Right. Right.
You know?
But,
And
and
so
I think that's the beauty of our faith. It's like we're still going to go through the hard things with the rest of the world, but we have hope in it and we have a peace, And I know sometimes that's kind of rocky and it's not always, solid, but
yeah,
we do have that. It's offered to us when we're ready and all that. So yeah, even this isn't how I plan 2020. I have some major big goals, but I just still feel like, all right, well, I'm not going to stop working. Same with you. I mean, you've got this show going now. So it's great to see that the alternative is just sitting around watching everybody else and becoming critical and bitter. And I'm so good at that anyway. I just figured I might as well get busy. So yeah, it's
well,
better
what
to
did they
get
say
busy.
in the movie? What did they say in the movie? Get busy living or get busy dying?
Oh, that's beautiful. That's right. Why not? Come on. We don't know. We need more Sabrina TikTok video. Oh, Michelle. Gosh, thank you. I know. I have a way I want to. Anyway, I've got ideas. It's coming. It's coming. Yes. Thank you for
You
saying
gotta
that.
love it. Thank you,
Sabrina's one
Michelle
of
and
those characters, yeah, on the Real Housewives. So you got to check it out and
Jennifer.
all that good stuff.
Well, thank you, Michelle. This has been a lot of fun. It's always fun talking with Jennifer O'Brien. And I want to thank all you guys for hanging out and adding your encouragement and uplifting remarks. I really appreciate it. And we've been talking, of course, with the very funny, ladies and gentlemen, on the Maurice Brown Show, the very funny and the very talented Jennifer O'Brien, also producer of Wives of the Quarantine. You got to check that out. A very, very, very funny web series that you can, again, find on her website, jenniferobrien.com. And what's the other link?
I think it's jenniferobriencomedy.com is my website. And then I think I'm Jennifer O'Brien on Facebook. Just start Googling. You'll find me eventually.
Just Google her. I think it's
Just
Jennifer. Jennifer, thanks again for being on the show. And again, everybody, we're going to be on Roku TV in a couple of days. I have a whole library of interviews that I've done with faith-based comedians and also actors and actresses as well. So check us out on the Creative Motion Network on Roku TV. You can go there now and see that. But Jennifer will be on in a couple of days. Jennifer, once again, thanks for being on the show. God bless you.
All right. God bless you too. Thanks for having me.